Okay, so in today's video I want to talk about the driver, and the driver is a really important club, but there's a few things that you want to understand. The first thing is that yes, if you are looking to improve your game, so if you looked at your game and you went, there's no obvious mistakes in your game, you're not bad at putting, you're not terrible at chipping, you're okay with your irons and you're okay with the driver and you want to improve, then obviously technically you need to take on that next level and leap, and the best thing to do is to learn to get better with this one. That then lends me on to the second point, which is that yes, the difference between driver and irons is, yes, of course, the driver, you'll position the ball further forward because we're going to hit the ball off a tee. But what you're trying to do is the same thing, right? So in today's video, we're going to talk a lot about how to hit up on the golf ball correctly. You actually apply the same technique into irons. It's just that you don't position the ball in the same manner. And obviously when you're hitting your irons, you don't hit it off a tee. So more and more people now, more and more students are using little gadgets to measure things like how far the ball goes or whether they're hitting up on the ball or whatever's going on. So if you've been on a simulator, you know, whether it's TrackMan, whether it's FlightScope, whether it's Quad, whether it's something else, one of the more entry-level SkyTrack, etc., a lot of these things are generally measuring whether you're hitting up on the ball, and they're giving you indications of what to work on. The problem with just isolating information like hitting up on the ball is depends how you're doing it, because you know, this could be more up on the ball, but technically it's pointless, right? Because it's just obviously not what we're trying to really do. So what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about how to hit up on the golf ball correctly. Now, I think you need to go through a little bit of a step-by-step process to do this, and this is one of the things that I do for a lot of my students is I get them doing one thing first and then advancing in it, evolving it. So I like the rope drill. Now the rope drill, so you're going to grab yourself a piece of rope. You shouldn't, first of all, when you get your rope, it can't really exceed 3 feet in length. And the reason for that is because when I swing it through, see mine kind of stops on the back. If it's longer, it will wrap around and smack you in the mouth. So we don't want that. And the second thing is you want the diameter to roughly be about the width of a golf club. Now I like the rope drill. I was actually introduced to the rope drill many years ago by a guy called John Shipp, who actually had more of a personal training background, and at the time I found it liberating and very interesting. And then more recently I've stumbled across the same information by a guy called Dr. Kwan, who many of you will be familiar with, and he has his own YouTube channel as well, and he's a biomechanist. So both of these people have a different sort of subjective perspective of the golf swing, and I find it really interesting that you know, that they're both talking about very similar things, and I like this exercise. Now to crack on with it, what you should be doing is, if you're going to do your rope drill, fantastic. If you can't be bothered to go and get some rope, then the other option is to turn the club upside down so it takes the weight out of the club, and you could do some lead hand only swings. That's another option, but I like the rope drill. Anyway, so the first thing we've got to do is you've got to direct the rope or your golf club correctly. So if I swing towards you, that means we don't want to be dragging it this way, okay? You want to feel like I'm swinging it towards you guys, okay? Now this is good. This is a good starting point. And then also what you want to try and just get a little bit of a feeling of when you do this is try to keep your lead arm straight, and see the way my arms are going quite high, so my hands are above my head. This is a good feeling. The reason why this is a good feeling is for my hands to have the capability to go high basically means I have to produce extension. Now extension, many of you will be familiar with the term extension if you've ever had problems with your back, because you'll generally go and see a specialist and they'll kind of get you doing things like thoracic extension like this, because it improves your range of motion and it's a better, healthy place to be than like this. So when we're talking about extension, we're basically talking about the same thing, but in the confinements of a golf swing. Okay, so let me go back to this. So where you don't want to be is, this is why you're hitting down and across with your driver. Okay, see where I am? But if I go up with my hands high, see what it does is my pelvis has to move to the lead side for me to be able to get my hands nice and high, and this is the extension. So that's what you'd practice first. The other reason why I like the rope drill, and to be fair, you could do this lead hand only, is just to recoil it back, through, back, through. Okay, so that will generally get you feeling like you're hitting slightly up on the ball, okay? But the way you're going to evolve it is it needs to feel a little bit more like a stretch. And the reason why it needs to feel a bit more like a stretch is because I could swing towards you with just my arm, and what we want to do, or what I want you to do, is incorporate a bit of rotation. See what I'm doing now? See, I'm opening myself up. And the way you're going to get that feeling, or the feeling that we're trying to incorporate, is more of a stretch down the lead side, okay? So if I'm swinging towards you guys and my arms are trying to go up, And then what I want you to do is get the feeling of opening up this lead side. Then what will happen is if my arms are going up and this is opening up, I just start to get a stretch here. And this is what I'm looking for. And then that's the sort of feeling you can play around with. It's just an activation down that lead side in and around the rib cage. And another golf coach who inspired a lot of my background was a guy called Calvin Meir-Hira. And he used to talk about sort of side bend, and particularly in that through swing. And that's why I think, you know, a lot of my students respond really well to recognition of feelings. And I think all of a sudden, if you can start to get this feeling of an element of side bend, so whether you think about the trail side dropping down, but I'm talking about getting an activation on this lead side, then all of a sudden you're going to get this blend of not only just kind of getting out of the way, you know, not only just directing the club correctly, but also this feeling of getting out of the way. And can you see the way now I'm really creating more of a stretch here, and you can introduce more speed. And all of a sudden, if you start to do this exercise, especially if you're not in the healthiest state, you might feel a little bit out of breath with it, but it's a great exercise to get the feeling of how you're going to hit up on the ball, because the way you're going to hit up on the ball is the lead shoulder retracting back and out the way. But also if we can get you rotating through with it, you're going to be able to stabilize that club, and that's where that stretch feeling is going to come. So you should first of all either do the single-handed club exercise so you can feel this sort of stretching motion, and then you can try and incorporate that into a hit. And like I said, really, whether it ends up being a driver feeling for how to hit up on the golf ball correctly, or whether you end up translating it into just a generic hit. So if I was doing my iron, I'd set up like so, I'd swing it back, I'd load into my left, but then see from here, this is the same feeling. And that's because that's what we need to do. Once we're here in the golf swing, we need to get out of the way, and it's exactly the same with the driver. So hopefully today's video just, again, gets you thinking about it slightly differently. And I think a lot of people get slightly uncertain when it comes to rotation, and then they hear terms like extension, how those two go together. And a lot of people tend to think, well, rotation is just this and extension is just this, but it is about blending both of those. And I sometimes think just thinking about stretching this lead side out might just give you more of a feeling that you can take to the course. Let me know how you get on.